For many NFL teams, it has reached the point in the season where they are starting to look to the offseason and to the draft as well. Today, we are going to be diving into the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft, providing my thoughts on what might happen in this mock. Let's get started right away here. First up, the Chicago Bears on the clock with the Carolina Panthers pick. I do think that quarterback absolutely has to be in play here. Caleb Williams and Drake Maye, I do think, are becoming increasingly closer. In my quarterbacks ranking, I actually put Drake Maye at number one. I just like what he can do in structure a little bit more. And I do think that the NFL has a chance of kind of seeing these guys in a similar light. I really do think it is a 1A and 1B scenario right now. And for the Bears, I think that Caleb Williams and Justin Fields kind of have a lot of similarities when it comes to their ability to make big plays and try to extend plays. I think they may shy away a little bit from doing that again if they decide to go the quarterback route. I think Drake Maye is really good in time. He's a great arm. He's good out of structure, but he's much more consistent than Caleb Williams in structure, in my opinion, being able to just progress through the reads and get the ball out on time and on target. So I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears taking Drake Maye, the quarterback, out of UNC with the first overall pick here. And that leaves Caleb Williams still on the board at number 2. I think the Cardinals could absolutely consider him, and I definitely think they will consider a quarterback, but I'm going to go in a different direction. I think that they decide to trade down because there are going to be so many suitors for that pick. I think the New York Giants in particular are going to be interested, and you're going to have to give up a lot to get this. It's going to be a absolute sweepstakes, whether you're the Patriots, the Giants, perhaps a team like the Commanders or the Falcons, maybe even the Packers. There's going to be a lot of teams that are in the race for Caleb Williams and whatever quarterback doesn't go first overall. I think the Giants will have to give up a lot here, but they are going to go ahead and push that through, and that means that they are going to have the number 2 overall pick to go up and get Caleb Williams. Many people think he should be the number 1 overall pick. I certainly, do think that Drake Maye is a little bit better at this point in time, but I absolutely get the hype with Caleb Williams. I do think that he is worthy of a top 5 selection, a top 3 selection, and the Giants come up and get him here. They have to pay a hefty price, but they got to get their guy. And they jump New England, who's now in a tough spot here. You really probably aren't comfortable taking that third quarterback at number 3 overall. You could certainly trade out of the pick, but what have the Patriots lacked for so many years? It's a good wide receiver, and perhaps the best wide receiver prospect we've seen since Calvin Johnson is staring them in the face. Gonna go with Marvin Harrison Jr., the wide receiver out of Ohio State here. I just think it makes way too much sense. His size, his speed, his route running, his ability to make contested catches down the field. He's something that the Patriots have missed for a very, very long time. They have not had that type of alpha number 1 wide receiver since Randy Moss back when he was with Tom Brady. And so they absolutely need to go get their guy. Marvin Harrison could really help out whoever the quarterback is there next year and in the future as well. Then we have the Chicago Bears. Obviously, you take your quarterback. I think they've got some wide receivers. You could certainly, have taken Marvin Harrison if he was available. Gonna go with Olu Fashanu, though. I think he is a great pass-protecting left tackle. You could kick Braxton Jones inside, who I think has played relatively well. You got your bookend tackles with him and Darnell Wright. A pretty solid offensive line. You got some wide receivers to work with, and I think that is a really solid starting point for Drake Maye or Caleb Williams if the Bears do decide to go that quarterback route. I think Olu Fashanu would be a great pick to just solidifying their blind side for sure. Then we have the Cardinals at number 5. It does suck that you miss out on Marvin Harrison and Olu Fashanu, but you pick up an extra first-round pick and a second-round pick this year as well. So I do think they would be happy with doing that. And you get Laiatu Latu, who I think a lot of people don't know how good he is. He's such an insanely productive pass rusher. Over the past 2 years, he's just been purely dominant. He has the production numbers. He has a lot of the measurables and things that you look for as well. This Cardinals pass rush and this defense as a whole really need some playmakers, and Latu has proven over the past couple of years that he is just a premier edge rushing prospect. I think you get him in the building, and that is a already just massive improvement to this defense and to the pass rush, which really needs some help. I think Gannon, has done some nice things with some of the guys around him. Would love to see what he can do with a lot more talent on that defense. Number 6, we have the Tennessee Titans. Going to have them taking Joe Alt. Mike Vrabel definitely will want to invest in the trenches. They just aren't very good up front right now. They have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. You drafted Skoronski last year. You could put Joe Alt right next to him, and Alt has just been the model of consistency for the past couple of seasons. You get those two together, you do have at least some things to build on the offense. You want to surround Will Levis with as many pieces as you can possibly get. You certainly could take somebody like Malik Neighbors, like Rome Odunze, somebody that is a weapon for him, but I think right now the pass protection is so terrible. You go get just a rock in Joe Alt. That would really help solidify this offense. Next, we have the Washington Commanders. Could definitely go in a lot of different directions, but I think that one thing that they're going to be in desperate need of is edge pass rush. Obviously, you trade away at Montez Sweat and Chase Young. I do think that they got okay returns for those guys, but you really do need to invest in that position again. Dallas Turner would be somebody that has shown a lot of explosiveness. He has that bend around the edge. He's got the athleticism that you look for, and he's just kind of a fresh start at that edge rusher position. You have some nice interior guys that he can play next to, and John Allen as well as Deron Payne. If you plug Dallas Turner in next to those guys, I definitely think he could have a lot of success. Yard betting on the upside of Turner here, but I really like what he could potentially be in that Washington defense. Then we have the Atlanta Falcons up next. I'm going to go with a quarterback here, and it's going to be Jaden Daniels out of LSU. Jaden Daniels was third on my quarterback rankings, and he has really propelled himself into the Heisman race, into the first round conversation, and potentially the top 10 as well. He's just come along so well as a passer. At Arizona State, when he was there for multiple years, he was mostly just a runner, a first read, and then if it's not there, take off kind of player. And he still has that athleticism and that ability to make big plays, but he has absolutely turned into a really prolific passer. He takes care of the ball. He pushes the ball downfield, though, when he can, and he's just really, really good all across the board. I think that Atlanta absolutely needs to find their franchise quarterback, and Jaden Daniels would be an awesome pick for them in this top 10 slot. At number 9, the Green Bay Packers, I am going to have them selecting Taliese Fuaga, the tackle out of Oregon State. He plays right tackle for them, and he is just a mauler in the running game. That's something that the Packers have loved to do for a long time. Run the ball, get ahead of the chains, and really be able to rely on your running game and controlling the clock to be able to win these games. Even when they had Aaron Rodgers, they like to do that, and I think they want to rely even more on it with Jordan Love at the quarterback position. Fuaga is just such a good run blocker. He's shown good movement skills as well. Keep up with edge rushers trying to turn the corner, and he just displaces people in the running game. So I definitely think he is going to be a hot riser in this draft and somebody the Packers could consider in the top 10. At number 10, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Going to go with Jared Verse, the edge rusher out of Florida State. Was really going to be a top 10 pick last year. Has shown a lot of the same things. He maybe hasn't taken that next step to really propel himself into the top 5 or top 3 conversation, but he's just a complete player. He's got kind of everything that you look for. He's very instinctual. He is somebody that I think would be a big improvement over what Joe Tryon-Shoyinka has provided for them at this point so far. I do think you need to get a little bit younger there. Shaq Barrett isn't getting any younger, has dealt with some injuries, and I think that Jared Verse would be an awesome pick for them as they continue to try to revamp that defensive line. For the Jets at number 11, gonna go with Malik Neighbors out of LSU. Neighbors has had an electric season at LSU with Jaden Daniels, who we talked about before. He has really kind of shown that he can be a wide receiver one. He's not necessarily the biggest guy, but he is a big downfield threat, has shown the ability to be a route running technician. Great, gets just fantastic separation at all 3 levels on the field, and he's somebody that I think the Jets could really use. He's may have some similarities to Garrett Wilson, but if Aaron Rodgers is able to come back, or if not, you got to give your wide receiver some additional options. Really, right now, Garrett Wilson is the only guy on that team. You could certainly go offensive line, and I think that would make a lot of sense for them, but I do think that right now the best player available really is Malik Neighbors besides Brock Bowers, and they have a million tight ends. So Neighbors is that playmaking offensive weapon that they could absolutely use in this passing game. For the Chargers, this was an easy one. Got to go with Johnny Newton, Jason Newton out of Illinois. I really like what Newton has done at Illinois. And this Chargers defense has needed an interior player forever, it seems, and they just have not addressed it. Johnny Newton would be a great way to go about addressing that massive gaping hole on this defense. I really hope that Brandon Staley is not there next year, but whoever is calling this defense would have a lot of fun with some of this talent on the defensive side of the ball, and Johnny Newton would be huge in being able to be a lot stiffer against the run and potentially get some penetrative pass rush from that interior as well. Next, for the Rams, I do think you have to consider looking for your quarterback of the future. Somebody I'm maybe not quite as high on, but I think the league is going to be a lot higher on, is J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. He hasn't shown that he really has to do a ton at Michigan. The past couple of games especially, he's been mostly just a game manager. But I think that a lot of NFL teams are going to fall in love with what he can do and kind of the potential that he's shown. He's got good velocity. He shows a pretty good understanding of where to go with the football, and he has the arm talent to get it there. He's just not asked to do a whole lot, and so you do have to do some projecting, but I think potentially a system where you get to sit behind Matthew Stafford and learn with Sean McVay, who's one of the best offensive minds in the NFL, this could definitely be a great landing spot for McCarthy. You just have to kind of start preparing for life after what Stafford is at this point, which is a often injured older quarterback, and I think McCarthy could be the best step in doing so for this Rams team. The Raiders up next. They have needed corner help for a while, and Nate Wiggins has played himself into the cornerback one conversation for sure. He's really shown some great athleticism, speed, the physicality shows up at some points as well, ball tracking. I really think that he has come into his own this season and has really turned into a really, really nice corner prospect. Nate Hobbs is really the only guy you have on the back end of this defense that you even feel like is a solid starter. So getting Wiggins to be that corner one and potentially be able to shut down number one wide receivers would be huge for this Raiders defense. And I think that Wiggins could potentially be that first corner off the board. Up next for the Indianapolis Colts at number 15. They could go in a ton of different directions, but I think that this is where the Brock Bowers slide comes to an end. There is just question marks about what a tight end can be. Is he going to be able to return first round value? But Bowers is just different, man. He is so good after the catch. He's a great route runner. He's been productive since his freshman year in college and really only gotten better. He is the number one target in that offense. They run jet sweeps with him. They run fullback dives with him. They just get the ball in his hands because he's such an electric playmaker. I think if you got Pittman and Jonathan Taylor, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, all those guys with Anthony Richardson, and just give him every opportunity to be successful, you're really putting your quarterback in a great position, and Brock Bowers is just such an awesome player. He would be somebody that I think would succeed in almost any system. I just think Shane Steichen in particular could get a lot of great use out of him. Next, we have the Denver Broncos, and they need to add to that wide receiver room. You don't expect that Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, all those guys are going to continue to be there. I think Keon Coleman is an awesome player for him. He's more of that contested catch wide receiver, which Russell Wilson seems to play well with. Cortland Sutton is having a really good year, so maybe it's a little bit redundant with what they already have, but it's also what's worked for them. It's that contested catch, ball winner type, and I think that Keon Coleman would absolutely fit that as well. He has really burst onto the scene this year and been a great player for that Florida State offense. I think that this does need to be a better offense moving forward for the Broncos, no doubt about it. And, to get the most out of Russell Wilson, if you're going to be paying him that much money, at least give him the weapons to be successful. So that's where Keon Coleman comes into play. At number 17, the Cincinnati Bengals up next. Obviously, with no Joe Burrow, this team is likely going to be picking more towards the middle of this first round and potentially even earlier. I think that wide receiver could definitely be a position that they attack. You obviously got to consider offensive line, the interior of that defensive line, maybe cornerback, but if they lose T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, which is possible, I think that Rome Odunze would be a great addition to this offense. He's kind of that contested catch ball winner. He reminds me a lot of T. Higgins, actually, where he has just shown that ability to be a real X wide receiver and go downfield, make plays at the catch point, and just be a big weapon for that Washington offense. So I think it would be a very natural replacement if you do have to move on from Higgins. I think that this would be a relatively seamless transition transition, and you can't say that often for moving on from, one of the better X receivers in football, but Odunze definitely provides a ton of that same upside there. You hope he can reach what T. Higgins is, but you get cheaper at that position, and I think that would be big for this Bengals offense, who looks to kind of reload before trying to get back to that playoff contention next year when Burrow is fully healthy. At number 18, the Buffalo Bills. Gonna go with J.C. Latham, the tackle out of Alabama. This guy is just gigantic. He's somebody that could solidify that right side of the line. I don't think Spencer Brown's been good this year or really at any point throughout his career. You just got to get better at that spot. You got to be able to run the ball a bit more efficiently as well, and I think that Latham could help in both of those ways. You plug him in on that right side, provide Josh Allen some additional protection, get a bit bigger and nastier in the trenches, and I think Buffalo really does need that. Latham has a lot of upside to continue to grow and get better as well, so I think that pick makes a lot of sense for the Bills. Then at number 19, we have the New Orleans Saints. Going to go with Chop Robinson, the edge rusher out of Penn State. Oftentimes they take those bigger body edge players, and Chop Robinson isn't necessarily that, but I think they've been missing a little bit of that explosiveness off the edge, the ability to really kind of bend around the quarterback and put a move, maybe an inside counter on that tackle and threaten the outside shoulder. I think Chop Robinson absolutely has the ability to do that, and when he is at his best, he can just absolutely dominate offensive tackles in front of him. You look at the Michigan game, and he was just absolutely single-handedly destroying the Michigan passing attack, which pretty much made them run the ball the entire game because Chop Robinson was just dominating the Michigan right tackle. So he's shown that he can be a huge impact on games and can take over. I think it's something the Saints could use on that defensive line as well. Next we have the Vikings, and I think they could certainly look at quarterback. You don't figure Kirk Cousins is likely going to be there long term, and this is a good spot to attack the quarterback position if you did decide to want to do so. Michael Penix could certainly be in the mix. I think Carson Beck could get himself in the first round conversation as well. Bo Nix, certainly somebody that could be considered as well, but I'm going to go with Cooper DeJean, the corner or safety out of Iowa. I think he's got a lot of versatility. He's somebody that has been really successful in, I think, a scheme that is relatively similar to what the Vikings run. I do think that in a system where Flores loves to blitz, you've got to have some good corners, some guys that can hold up one-on-one coverage, and Cooper DeJean, I think, can absolutely do that. He has great instincts, the ability to come downhill, make a hit, make a play on the ball, and I think that DeJean could do that. Provide you a ton of versatility on the backside of that defense as well. I think he has the ability to be a great safety as well if you decide to go that route. So I think that would be a very good pick for the Vikings there as well. Then we have the Arizona Cardinals on the clock with the Texans pick here. And I am going to go with Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. We got them Latu earlier in this draft, continuing to add to the defense, which just lacks talent, simply. Yeah, I think that side of the ball really, really needs a refresh. Kool-Aid is a very solid press man corner. He can do a lot of different things. He's instinctual. He can make plays on the ball. He's just somebody that I think is really, really solid, and the Cardinals could absolutely use that in the back end of that defense. So I really like Kool-Aid McKinstry and Latu. That'd be a great pairing for that Cardinals defense and would be a big jolt of talent into that defense side of the ball. Next, the Seahawks are going to go with Braylon Trice. Trice kind of has that ideal size that you're looking for in the defensive end position. He's shown the ability to get after the quarterback. He can be really good in the run game as well. He has that power profile where he can get after you. He can win the outside shoulder, but he's also a threat to go through you as well. It doesn't hurt that he's from Washington. It's just got that hometown connection, that hometown story as well. So you definitely like that. I think the Seahawks could continue to add to the front seven, get after the quarterback, be a bit more efficient, and I think Trice would be a great pick in doing so there. We have the Steelers on the clock next, and you could definitely attack the offensive line, but I'm going to go with a player that has had some rough stretches, but I still think is an immensely talented player, Kalen King. He did kind of get cooked by Marvin Harrison Jr., but I think that he has everything that you look for in a cornerback. He's got the instincts. He's got some really, really nice ability. Obviously, a disappointing game against Ohio State, but for the Steelers, Joey Porter Jr. has been really good. Go get his former teammate in Kalen King and really have the ability to have a nice 1-2 connection, be able to shut down some of the great wide receiver cores in this NFL. I do think that Patrick Peterson has been a bit of a liability, or, every other guy that they've put out there, Levi Wallace, those guys have not been particularly good for him. So go get some stability, go get a playmaker in Kalen King and pair him with his former college teammate. The Texans up next, speaking of pairing with their former college teammate, going to go with Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. He has been banged up this year, but I think that you want to continue to put weapons around CJ Stroud, somebody he's been incredibly familiar with and done great things with at Ohio State. Why not add that kind of player to your wide receiver room? You get Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Emeka Egbuka. That is absolutely a legit wide receiver core in the NFL. And I think that Stroud could continue to just be a great cerebral passer in that kind of system. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they decide to kind of go the Bengals route where you surround them with a lot of wide receivers, because CJ Stroud is able to see the whole field really well and just kind of be able to pick apart the defense. I think that he would be a really, really good player to add to that system and be an awesome addition to that Texans passing game. The Dolphins up next, going to go with Amarius Mims, the tackle out of Georgia. Hasn't played a ton, really his first year as a starter, has been injured as well, but you got to continue to add to this offensive line. Whether it's the left tackle and Teron Armstead constantly being injured or some subpar offensive line play, on that right side with Austin Jackson, I think Mims could be a big addition. He's shown really good athletic ability, and I think that, the talent is absolutely there to be worth this pick and probably a top 15 or even top 10 pick. He's just got to put it all together and show that, he can do it. There's just not a ton of experience there, but you got to take a swing on some upside, and I think the Dolphins would absolutely love to do so in Amarius Mims. At 26, the Dallas Cowboys on the clock, going to go with another Texas player here, Xavier Worthy out of Texas. Worthy is a true deep play threat. He's got just great stop-start ability, and he is a burner. Somebody that is a bit smaller, no doubt about it, but he can track the deep ball. He's very explosive as a Z wide receiver, that downfield threat. Somebody like Michael Gallup that, really hasn't been able to get back what he had a couple of years ago. I think Worthy would be a really, really nice replacement for that, and continue to add weapons to that passing game. You obviously have CeeDee Lamb. You have some other guys there as well, but Xavier Worthy would be a great addition to this passing game and continue to get the most out of Dak Prescott. And I think that's a theme that a lot of NFL offenses are going to go with, and you can see that theme throughout the draft here. For the 49ers, going to go with a cornerback. I definitely think they could add to that room. Going to go with Kamari Lassiter, who has played really well. I think definitely has played himself into the first round conversation. And out of Georgia, he certainly faced some really good wide receivers. That pedigree is very important, and this 49ers defense could absolutely use some additional help on that back end. Since they lost Emmanuel Mosley and some of those guys over the years, they just haven't been able to find that, true lockdown corner. And this late in the first round, you might not find that guy, but Lassiter has definitely proven that he can be a really, really solid cornerback prospect, and definitely think the 49ers would like to take a chance on him. Then we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. It is a little bit predictable, but I'm going to go with the best interior offensive lineman, in my opinion, in Graham Barton. He plays left tackle for Duke right now, but I think his best position is going to be guard or potentially even center. I think he could potentially play left tackle and be successful at it, but the Jaguars have a ton of options on where to play him, and he's got a lot of versatility. I think they could use him in many different spots on that offensive line. You got to continue to surround Trevor Lawrence with good talent, and in this case that comes in the form of really good protection on that interior with Graham Barton. The Baltimore Ravens up next. I think that they need to add to that defensive line. You could definitely go with somebody like Leonard Taylor, who has a lot of upside on the interior, but I think they do want somebody that can just be a consistent, really good player for them, and I think that's exactly what JT Tuimoloau is for Ohio State. He doesn't necessarily have the most elite sack production. He's not always blowing up plays in the backfield, but he's so consistent in his technique and what he does. He can get after the passer. He can bend around the edge. He can absolutely run through tackles as well. He got Olu Fashanu a couple of times when they played Penn State earlier this year. He's also a really good run defender, and he does have some really big plays and big moments throughout his college career. You think of Penn State last year where he had, ridiculous stats. He's shown some great tape. It's about finding that consistency. I think right now he's just going to be a really solid starter in the NFL with potential to turn into a great player for that Ravens front. For the Lions up next, I am going to go with Troy Fautanu, the offensive lineman from Washington. I think he can play really any of the 5 spots and most likely is going to be best on the interior just because he is a bit smaller. He's 6'4". I definitely think that, that might be a thing that he's not going to be able to stick at tackle, but he can be an incredibly good guard or center, interior offensive lineman at that next level. For the Lions, they build through the trenches. That's pretty much their identity, and you don't know how long you're going to be able to keep that offensive line together, continuing to add to the well, much like the Eagles have done over the years. I think is something that could be very appealing for this Lions offense. Being able to be deep at that spot, really talented as well, I think could be a great pick for that Lions team. Then we have the Kansas City Chiefs. This is being recorded before Monday Night Football, where the Chiefs and the Eagles are playing each other, so they may flip on this order, but I am going to go with Jalen Polk out of Washington. He has been absolutely awesome for Washington as well. He's that real kind of downfield threat, somebody that can threaten vertically and be a guy for Patrick Mahomes that is able to attack downfield and win at all 3 levels on the field. I really like his fit within this Kansas City offense, and continuing to add weapons around Patrick Mahomes is a great idea. You do lack some real talent at the wide receiver spot. Obviously, you've got Travis Kelce, but you need to continue to add weapons for him, and I think that Polk would be an awesome pick for them. And then at pick 32, you could go in a couple of different directions. I'm going to go with Denzel Burke out of Ohio State. Has really had a nice season for Ohio State and has turned into a really solid corner prospect here. For the Eagles, James Bradbury, Darius Slay, not getting any younger. I think they need to add to that room. You could certainly go in the trenches, get another weapon at linebacker or potentially on the offensive line as well. But I think that their best chance of kind of using their resources well is going and attacking that corner position. There's a lot of good ones towards the end of round 1, and I think that Denzel Burke would be a great pick for them. So that is going to do it for my 2024 NFL mock draft. Let me know what you think down below. Who do you want your team to take? If you like this kind of content and more NFL draft content, please hit that subscribe button down below. While you're down there, like the video as well. Helps me out so much and pushes this to other NFL draft fans just like you. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one.